They thought Earth was primitive, an insignificant ember drifting in a galaxy of flames. But embers, when pressed, ignite, and what the Galactic Empire mistook for silence was a storm holding its breath. The day they reached Ravos, they learned Earth doesn't kneel. Earth waits, and when it rises, it does not ask. It burns. The Galactic Empire had ruled for over 3000 years, worlds burned and bent at its will. From the frozen moons of Vorath to the lava-skinned planets of the Kalan Rift, the Empire's grip was absolute. Entire species had submitted, some voluntarily, others after bloody, brutal campaigns. But never Earth. Earth was considered a backwater, a primitive planet dangling in the Milky Way too far from the Imperial core to be seen as anything but a minor annoyance. When humanity refused the first envoy's demands to kneel, the Empire sent warships. They never returned. Reports came back, garbled, filled with static and brief flashes of horror. Imperial dreadnoughts torn apart mid-warp fleets ambushed in asteroid fields that shouldn't have even existed. Soldiers whispering of ghosts in power armor. Then silence. Vortan Aegir dismissed it as a technical failure, or perhaps the handiwork of one of the rogue systems. Earth wasn't even part of the star charts until recently. Surely it couldn't pose a threat. Not when entire planets fell at the mere sight of the Imperial crest. But the silence grew louder. So Vortan Aegir sent Admiral Shurek, one of his most ruthless Part 2. The Unraveling of the Empire. The silence that followed Admiral Shurek's ill-fated expedition to Ravos was not the silence of victory for the Galactic Empire, but the suffocating hush of bewildered terror. Reports heavily censored and manipulated by Imperial propaganda spoke of unforeseen anomalies and tactical withdrawals, but the truth whispered in the shadow markets and hidden comm channels across the vast Imperium was far more chilling. Admiral Shurek, the Empire's most decorated and feared commander, and his entire fleet had simply vanished. Not destroyed, not defeated, just gone. And the whispers of ghosts in power armor and fleets ambushed in non-existent asteroid fields began to spread like a virulent plague, infecting the minds of even the most loyal Imperial citizens. On Earth, in the command cathedral of Luna Prime, where ancient algorithms hummed alongside quantum processors, Saren Vale, her face grimly determined, stared at the updated galactic map. Ravos, a system that had once been a mere dot on uncharted territory, now glowed with a faint, almost imperceptible human signature. Beside her, Kale Reese, head of Earth's covert intelligence network, a man whose easy smile belied a razor-sharp mind, looked at the holographic projections of the Imperial war machine. Vortan Aegir isn't just angry, Saren, Kale said, his voice low. He's terrified. This isn't how empires fall. They don't just unmake themselves. Saren nodded. He's right. The Empire's strength isn't just its dreadnoughts, it's the absolute belief in its invincibility. We just shattered that belief. Now we make them understand that their terror is justified. The Shadow Legion, humanity's true fleet, a silent, agile armada of advanced stealth cruisers and multi-role frigates, had revealed only a fraction of its true capabilities at Ravos. Constructed in deep space manufacturing arrays hidden within nebulae and temporal anomalies, these ships defied conventional galactic understanding. They were powered by harnessed micro-singularities shielded by quantum displacement fields that allowed them to briefly phase out of reality, and armed with void lances, weapons that didn't just pierce armor, but caused localized, contained gravitational collapses within enemy vessels. Their strategy, meticulously planned over decades of hidden observation, was not to conquer the Empire in a head-on war, but to unravel it from within. It was a war of nerves, of strategic sabotage, and of psychological manipulation. Operation Echo, as it was codenamed, was designed to exploit the Empire's rigid hierarchy, its fear of rebellion, and its brutal efficiency. The first phase targeted the Empire's communication network. Human stealth ships cloaked and phasing slipped through Imperial deep space patrols like whispers in the void. They didn't destroy comm arrays, they subverted them. Using sophisticated quantum entanglement algorithms developed by Earth's cyber warfare specialists, they began broadcasting false orders, garbled intelligence, and most effectively simulated distress calls from major Imperial strongholds. Imperial forces were sent on wild goose chases, pulled away from vital defensive positions to investigate phantom attacks, or worse, to engage in friendly fire incidents orchestrated by the human-engineered Echoes. One such incident occurred in the Vorath sector, a frozen wasteland controlled by the Imperial Krokar, a species known for their stoic discipline. Human subversion teams using a newly developed psychic mimic technology projected false orders directly into the Krokar's telepathic command network, ordering them to attack a nearby Xylosian mining colony, a key Imperial resource hub. The Krokar, programmed for unquestioning obedience, complied, unleashing a brutal assault on their own allies, causing catastrophic damage and sowing deep mistrust within the Imperial chain of command. Vortan Aegir, receiving frantic reports of these inexplicable incidents, convened his inner council, his reptilian eyes narrowed with suspicion. Sabotage. But by whom and how? Our systems are impenetrable. Our comms are encrypted with multi-layered quantum locks. His chief strategist, the calculating Eldrin diplomat Zarthos, projected a galaxy map riddled with flickering anomalies. The disruptions emanate from sectors near where Admiral Shurek vanished, Your Eminence. Coincidentally, these are also the sectors bordering the uncharted regions where Earth is rumored to reside. Their technology, if they possess any, should be primitive. Yet the pattern of disruption, it is unlike anything we have encountered. Vortan Aegir scoffed. Earth. The insignificant primitives impossible. This is the work of a rogue faction, perhaps the Zelvani remnants or the Marathi cultists seeking to destabilize us. He refused to believe that the tiny speck of humanity could orchestrate such chaos. His ego blinded him. But the chaos deepened. The Shadow Legion, in a coordinated move, began to target the Empire's vast resource supply lines. Not with direct attacks, but with surgical strikes aimed at disrupting their logistical hubs. They would hit critical fuel depots not by destroying them, but by subtly corrupting the fuel's molecular structure, causing Starship's engines to sputter and fail mid-jump. They would infiltrate automated asteroid mining facilities not to destroy, but to alter the output, diverting vital minerals to hidden rebel groups or simply rendering them useless. The most devastating blow came with Operation Black Harvest. Imperial Agriculture World's vast planetary farms that fed billions across the Empire were targeted. Human bioengineers working in secret for decades had developed a highly specialized genetic disruptor that, when introduced into the local ecosystem, caused a specific Imperial-engineered food crop to rapidly rot from within. The crops would appear healthy on the surface, but within days of harvest they would turn to putrid mush. Mass famine swept through several core Imperial worlds, leading to widespread riots and desperate pleas for food. Vortan Aegir was furious. This is not war, this is pestilence, a plague who dares to unleash such depravity upon the Empire. Zarthos the Eldrin finally voiced his deepest fear. Your Eminence, the pattern suggests a level of biological warfare of technological subtlety far beyond anything any known rebel faction possesses. It speaks of a species that studies, that observes, that understands our systems, our biology, our very weaknesses with an intimacy that is terrifying. It speaks of humanity. Vortan Aegir's face contorted in a mask of rage. Silence. Humanity is a myth, a forgotten footnote. They are incapable of this. His denial was absolute, a fortress built of arrogance. But the Empire was fracturing. Subjugated species long oppressed by Imperial rule saw the growing chaos as an opportunity. The Zelvani, a proud warrior race whose spirit had been nearly broken by centuries of Imperial rule, began to subtly resist. The Marathi, psionically gifted beings who had been forced to serve the Empire's intelligence networks, started to subtly subvert Imperial orders, their minds, projecting calming illusions or disruptive psychic static into their overseers. Even some of the more pragmatic Xylosian vassal states, seeing the Empire's grip weakening, began to send out feelers discreetly seeking contact with these ghosts in power armor. Saren Vale, watching these developments from Earth, knew that the time was right for the next phase, the Liberation Gambit. It was no longer enough to cause chaos. They had to offer an alternative. Humanity began to make direct but clandestine contact with the leaders of oppressed species. They offered them not just weapons, but knowledge schematics for self-replicating drone factories, blueprints for energy shields capable of withstanding Imperial dreadnoughts, and most importantly, encrypted communication networks that bypassed Imperial surveillance. They offered them the means to fight their own battles to reclaim their own freedom. Kyle Reese, often personally leading these covert missions, found himself in treacherous negotiations with desperate alien leaders. On the lava-skinned world of Kalan, he met with the underground resistance of the Pyran, a resilient species of molten rock beings. "We offer you the tools to fight," Kale stated, his voice resonating through their heat-resistant comms. "But the choice to rise is yours. Humanity does not seek to replace one empire with another. We seek to dismantle all empires." The Pyran leader, a molten titan named Rakan, regarded him with skeptical, glowing eyes. "Your species was dismissed as primitive. Your words speak of freedom, but your actions sow chaos. Why should we trust a ghost?" "Because we know what it's like to be dismissed," Kale replied, his gaze unwavering. "We know what it's like to be told you're insignificant. We are not here to rule you, but to help you reclaim what was stolen. We have no interest in your resources or your loyalty. We only seek to see the empire crumble and all species stand free." Rakan, after much deliberation, agreed. The Pyran, using human schematics and their innate ability to manipulate extreme heat, began to forge weapons from their planet's core, turning their molten homeworld into a hidden arsenal. The Liberation Gambit ignited a wave of coordinated rebellions across the Empire. The Zelvani, armed with human-supplied weaponry, launched a full-scale uprising on their homeworld, their ancient warrior chants echoing across the ravaged plains. The Marathi, leveraging their psionic abilities, disrupted Imperial command structures, turning entire battalions against each other. The Xylosian vassal states, emboldened by humanity's success, declared their independence, sealing their borders and arming their citizens. Vorton Aegir, facing an unraveling empire and an unseen enemy, finally acknowledged the impossible truth. "It is humanity," he hissed, his voice filled with loathing. "They are the architects of this chaos. They are the ghosts. They are the very plague we sought to contain." He ordered the full might of the Imperial core fleet, his last desperate gamble to set a course for Earth, intending to glass the planet and end the human problem once and for all. But Earth was ready. They had anticipated this move. The Shadow Legion, along with the newly formed Concord of Liberated Worlds fleets, cobbled together from Xylosian gunships, Zelvani assault carriers, and Pyran molten core cruisers, moved to intercept. This was not just humanity's fight anymore, it was the galaxy's. Admiral Astreus, Earth's supreme fleet commander, a veteran of countless hidden skirmishes, stood on the bridge of the Shadowfall, humanity's most advanced dreadnought. Its hull was a shifting canvas of quantum camouflage. Its void lances hummed with barely contained power. "They come for our home world," Astreus announced, his voice calm, resolute. "They come to erase us, but they will find that the ember they sought to extinguish has become an inferno. Let the Empire burn." The final confrontation took place at the Battle of the Veil Nebula, a vast swirling cloud of cosmic dust and gas that served as a perfect ambush point. The Imperial core fleet, massive and heavily armed, entered the nebula confident in their superior numbers. But they were met not by a conventional force, but by a swirling vortex of ghosts. Human ships phased in and out of reality, their void lances tearing through Imperial dreadnoughts with silent, devastating precision. Zarn drones, now fully integrated into the Concord fleet, swarmed the Imperial lines, disabling shields and targeting systems. Zelvani warriors, utilizing their ancestral knowledge of guerrilla tactics, launched boarding parties, their ancient blades clashing against Imperial power armor. Pyran cruisers, their hulls glowing with contained molten energy, punched through Imperial formations, their superheated plasma cannons melting through shields. Vorton Aegir, watching the carnage from his flagship, the Imperial glory, screamed in rage and disbelief. "Where are they? We can't target them. They are everywhere and nowhere. They are unmaking us." The tide of battle turned decisively when Saren Vale, from Earth's command cathedral, executed Operation Echo Storm. Utilizing every subverted Imperial comm array and a network of captured Imperial Psi-Amp units, she unleashed a galaxy-wide psychic feedback loop, a cacophony of fear, doubt, and manipulated memories of Imperial atrocities, directly into the minds of every Imperial commander and soldier. The rigid discipline of the Empire shattered. Soldiers threw down their weapons, commanders screamed in agony, their minds overwhelmed by the very fear they had inflicted upon others. Vorton Aegir, his own mind reeling from the psychic assault, his reptilian eyes wide with pure, unadulterated terror, collapsed on his throne. "This is not war," he choked out, his voice barely a whisper. "This is judgment. They are not humans. They are demons." The Shadowfall, commanded by Astreus, moved in for the final blow. It didn't fire its void lances. Instead, it deployed a single experimental device, the Reality Unbinder. It wasn't a weapon of destruction, but of unraveling. It focused a concentrated wave of antimatter resonance directly at the Imperial glory. The Imperial glory didn't explode. It simply folded. Its vast structure, its proud imperial crest, its very atoms ceased to be, not screaming, just gone. Folded inward like a god kneeling at last. Astraeus's voice cracked through the silence. Target neutralized. No residual anomalies. Sol system is safe. For now. The galaxy didn't cheer. They watched. From broken thrones, distant moons, and shattered worlds. Billions watched Earth. A world that had once begged to be left alone. Stand unburned in the face of extinction. The Empire would never rise again, but something else might. Because Earth had proven a terrifying truth. Humanity wasn't the most powerful species in the galaxy. It was the most dangerous. And somewhere deep in a quiet place, Saren Vale stared out at the stars. "We weren't supposed to win," Kale said beside her. "We didn't win," she replied softly. "We just survived harder." Then she turned back to the war room. "Now," she said, voice firm, "let's rebuild it better." As the fractured galaxy watched, something shifted. They no longer feared Earth. They looked at it as proof, as a warning, as the new constant in a universe where empires fell like leaves in the wind. Saren Vale stood beneath Earth's reborn command cathedral, surrounded by new star maps, not of territory but of memory. "We didn't win," she whispered to Kale Reese beside her, "but we endured what was meant to unmake us. That makes us dangerous." Kyle nodded, his voice hoarse. "So what now?" She smiled, faint but fierce. "Now we don't rebuild the galaxy." She pointed to a blank quadrant on the map. "We build something better. Part E, the architects of a new dam." The eradication of the Galactic Empire was not the end of a war, but the turbulent birth of a new galactic era. The sheer vacuum of power left by the Empire's instantaneous collapse plunged vast swathes of the galaxy into an unprecedented state of chaos. Planets once held in absolute subjugation by Imperial forces now found themselves utterly without governance, descending into localized conflicts, rampant piracy, and desperate humanitarian crises. The ghosts in power armor had dismantled an empire, but now faced the monumental task of building a viable, peaceful alternative from its shattered remnants. Saren Vale, now unanimously elected as the provisional Concordium steward of the newly formed Galactic Concordium, understood the enormity of the challenge. Her office, a stark contrast to the opulent chambers of the fallen empire, was a simple room on Luna Prime, overlooking the scarred yet resilient surface of Earth. The core of the Concordium was formed by humanity and its key allies forged in the fires of war, the pragmatic Zarn Collective, the liberated and fiercely loyal Zelvani, the technologically adept Xylotians, and the resilient Piran. But hundreds of other species, long oppressed and now suddenly free, clamored for recognition, resources, and protection. "The immediate priority is stabilization, not expansion," Saren declared at the first full Concordium Council meeting. Her voice, calm yet firm, carried the weight of countless lives. "We must establish humanitarian aid routes, quell localized conflicts, and provide interim governance to the most vulnerable systems. We will not replace one iron fist with another. We will empower." Kale Reese, now overseeing Concordium security, faced the gargantuan task of policing a galaxy in flux. His Shadow Legion had transitioned from a clandestine assault force to a comprehensive peacekeeping and humanitarian fleet. Human and allied forces, often working in tandem with newly formed local militias, deployed to conflict zones, not to conquer, but to mediate, to disarm, and to protect civilian populations from opportunistic warlords who sought to fill the power vacuum. Dr. Elias Thorne, now head of Concordium Applied Sciences, found himself at the forefront of a galaxy-wide rebuilding effort. His most revolutionary invention, the Aetherweave projector, derived from studying the Imperial glory's unraveling, allowed for the rapid structural repair of damaged planetary infrastructure and starships. It didn't just rebuild, it subtly rewove the fundamental energy patterns of matter-making structures stronger and more resilient. Deep Core Zero, humanity's hidden industrial complex, became a beacon of technological innovation, its output now channeled towards peaceful reconstruction rather than warfare. The logistical challenge was immense. Famine plagued dozens of worlds as the Imperial agricultural supply lines, once ruthlessly efficient, completely collapsed. The Zarn Collective, with their vast computational and logistical networks, proved indispensable. Their automated cargo fleets, now reprogrammed for aid delivery, crisscrossed the galaxy, transporting food, medical supplies, and essential building materials to desperate populations. Their cold, logical efficiency, once terrifying, was now a source of comfort and stability. The Zelvani, having finally reclaimed their homeworlds, poured their martial prowess into the Concordium's security efforts. Their warriors, once bound by imperial chains, now served as fiercely loyal and disciplined peacekeepers, their ancestral combat skills adapted to non-lethal crowd control and diplomatic engagement. The Xylosians, with their innate understanding of complex systems, became the architects of the Concordium's new galactic communication network, a decentralized, encrypted system designed to prevent the kind of imperial surveillance that had once enabled their dominance. Despite these efforts, resistance to the Concordium's new order was inevitable. The Crimson Ascendancy, a coalition of former imperial military commanders and disgruntled minor species who yearned for the old order, quickly rose to prominence. Led by a ruthless Krokar warlord named Vorlag, the Ascendancy believed that the galaxy needed a strong, centralized hand, and they viewed the Concordium's democratic principles as weakness. They launched brutal raids on newly liberated worlds, attempting to re-establish imperial control through fear and violence. Vorlag embodies everything we fought against. Kale Reese reported to Saren Vale, a holographic map of the Crimson Ascendancy's movements flickering between them. He's consolidating power, rapidly reactivating old imperial garrisons and exploiting the desperation of unaligned worlds. Saren Vale's expression was grim. We cannot allow him to re-establish any semblance of the Empire, but we cannot fight him with brute force. We must show the galaxy the difference between fear and true authority. Operation Empathy Shield was launched. It was a multifaceted campaign focused on isolating Vorlag's forces and crucially winning over the populations he sought to control. Concordium fleets under Admiral Astraeus's command engaged in precision blockades, preventing Vorlag from expanding while simultaneously establishing humanitarian corridors for desperate civilians to escape. Dr. Thorne, with his Xylosian collaborators, developed psyche harmonic projectors, devices capable of broadcasting calming, reassuring frequencies across wide areas, countering the fear and anger sown by the Crimson Ascendancy's propaganda. These projectors, deployed by human stealth frigates, would precede Concordium ground forces, paving the way for peaceful resolution. General Jin personally led several liberation expeditions into Crimson Ascendancy territory. Instead of full-scale invasions, these were targeted raids to disable Vorlag's propaganda centers, rescue captured civilians, and provide direct aid to oppressed populations. Jin, often unarmed, would engage in direct dialogue with local leaders, her presence a tangible symbol of the Concordium's commitment to their well-being. On the war-torn planet of Draxus III, she negotiated a ceasefire between warring factions, bringing fresh water and medical supplies to a city that had suffered for years under Vorlag's proxy. Her actions, widely broadcast on the Concordium's burgeoning comm-nets, inspired hope and trust where fear had once reigned. The turning point came at the Siege of Starfall, a heavily fortified Crimson Ascendancy stronghold that Vorlag believed was impregnable. He amassed his entire remaining fleet, preparing for a decisive confrontation. However, the Concordium, having learned from its past struggles, did not attack head-on. Admiral Astraeus, leading the Shadowfall and a diverse Concordium fleet, executed a daring Ghost Gambit. Using a combination of human quantum displacement tech and Zarn drone swarms, they created multiple phantom fleets, drawing Vorlag's attention to dozens of simulated threats across the sector. While Vorlag scrambled to meet these non-existent incursions, the true Concordium forces, led by Astraeus himself, executed a short-range masked warp jump directly into Starfall's orbital defenses, bypassing its outer layers entirely. On the ground, General Jin led a combined arms assault. Her forces, a mix of human special operations, Zelvani shock troopers, and Pyran demolition experts, moved with ruthless efficiency. They didn't aim for conquest, but for the swift capture of Vorlag and the disarmament of his forces. Jin, utilizing her understanding of alien psychology, had crafted a precise plan to trigger a psychological collapse within Vorlag's elite guards, overwhelming them with their own ingrained fears and doubts using sophisticated psionic disruption modules developed by the Marathi. Vorlag, on his command bridge, watched in horror as his defenses crumbled, his comms filled with panic and confusion. He tried to rally his forces, but his commands were met with hesitation, then outright defiance. He was captured by Jin's forces, his face a mask of disbelief. You fight like specters. You are not an army. You are an infection. We are Liberation, Vorlog, Jin stated calmly, her rifle aimed steadily at his head. And your reign of fear ends now. Vorlag's capture, widely broadcast across the galaxy, signaled the definitive end of the Crimson Ascendancy. The remaining factions, seeing the overwhelming power and moral authority of the Concordium, quickly surrendered or integrated peacefully. The era of empires built on fear and conquest was truly over. The Concordium then faced an even deeper, more philosophical challenge, the memory of the Empire. Billions of beings across the galaxy had known nothing but imperial rule for millennia. They had been taught that humanity was primitive, a footnote, a danger. Changing this ingrained perception was a task far more complex than any military campaign. Saren Vale initiated the Galactic Re-Education Project, a vast multi-generational undertaking aimed at rewriting galactic history, correcting imperial propaganda, and fostering genuine interspecies understanding. This involved universal curriculum, standardized educational programs translated into thousands of languages, teaching the true history of the Empire's rise and fall, humanity's role, and the core tenets of the Concordium. Cultural exchange programs, encouraging direct interaction between species, facilitating dialogue and breaking down ancient prejudices. Human cultural ambassadors traveled to every corner of the galaxy, sharing Earth's diverse arts, music, and philosophical traditions. Historical reclamation dedicated teams led by Zorathi historians and Xylosian data analysts meticulously combed through imperial archives, recovering suppressed knowledge, forgotten cultures, and the true stories of resistance against the Personae Empire. Dr. Elias Thorne, in his more contemplative moments, often pondered the cosmic tapestry, the interconnectedness of all life and phenomena in the universe. His research now extended beyond technology, delving into the very nature of sentience and its role in shaping reality. He developed sentient resonance field generators, which, when deployed across a system, subtly enhanced empathy and reduced aggression, promoting peaceful coexistence. The most profound realization of this era came from the discovery of the architect echoes. While studying the residual energies of the Imperial Glory's unraveling doctor, Thorne's team, working with ancient Zorathi texts, uncovered subtle, almost imperceptible patterns. These weren't just energy signatures, they were complex informational ghosts of the architects themselves, imprints left on the fabric of space-time. They were not sentient in the traditional sense, but remnants of their profound understanding of the universe's fundamental laws. These echoes revealed a chilling truth. The Galactic Empire, in its relentless pursuit of conquest and its reckless manipulation of certain cosmic energies, had inadvertently begun to unravel the very fabric of reality at a subtle, almost undetectable level. They had been unknowingly fracturing the cosmic tapestry. The unseen entities, those beings from nullspace, were not simply a separate threat. They were a manifestation of this fracturing, a chaotic reaction to the Empire's unchecked influence. The Empire's destruction, while violent, had, in a twisted way, prevented a far greater, slower cosmic collapse. Saren Vale, upon learning of the Architect Echo's revelations, realized that humanity's original purpose, their dangerousness, was not just about survival, but about being the unwitting disruptors of a flawed, self-destructive cycle. They had been the wrench in the Imperial machine, the catalyst for a necessary, albeit brutal, cosmic intervention. The Concordium, now united by a shared understanding of this deeper cosmic reality, entered an era of profound vigilance. It was no longer just about rebuilding. It was about safeguarding the very integrity of the universe. Humanity, with its unique blend of aggression and compassion, its insatiable curiosity and its stubborn refusal to conform, was uniquely positioned to lead this eternal vigil. They had endured what was meant to unmake them, and in doing so they had become the unlikely architects of a new dawn, not just for themselves, but for the entire cosmic tapestry. The work was endless, the threats ever present, but the galaxy, now intertwined with humanity's destiny, would face them together. Part IV, the Cosmic Weavers and the Eternal Frontier. Century passed. The Galactic Concordium, forged in the crucible of imperial collapse and guided by the relentless pragmatism and surprising idealism of humanity, evolved into a truly stable, thriving, and diverse galactic civilization. The Age of Reconstruction had seamlessly flowed into the Age of Enlightenment, where scientific breakthroughs, cultural exchanges, and philosophical debates flourished across thousands of interconnected star systems. The wounds of the Empire had largely healed, and the memory of the Empire was now a distant, cautionary tale taught in Concordium academies, a reminder of the fragility of power and the dangers of unchecked ambition. Saren Vale, her name now synonymous with the founding of the Concordium, was a revered historical figure. Her final words, "We build something better," etched into the very foundations of Concordium philosophy. Kyle Reese, having transitioned from strategist to elder statesman, continued to advise on security matters, his quiet wisdom invaluable in navigating the subtle interspecies tensions that inevitably arose. Dr. Elias Thorne, now an almost mythical figure, continued his groundbreaking research, his mind perpetually probing the deepest mysteries of the universe from his sprawling sentient laboratory within Deep Core Zero. The cosmic tapestry was no longer just a metaphor. It was a living, breathing reality, a complex web of interconnected species, cultures, and technologies, all woven together by the Concordium's unifying principles. Humanity, while still a central pillar, had seamlessly integrated, sharing knowledge, culture, and even genetic material with countless allied species. Human settlements dotted the galaxy not as colonial outposts, but as vibrant hubs of innovation and cultural exchange. However, the universe, vast and indifferent, held new, unimaginable challenges. The architect Echoes, while providing invaluable insight into cosmic order, also hinted at dangers beyond their comprehension, phenomena that existed on scales far grander than mere galactic empires. And the unseen, those enigmatic entities from null space, though contained by the reality anchor net, continued to ripple at the edges of known reality, their occasional manifestations serving as chilling reminders of the eternal frontier. The greatest challenge of this era was the deep void anomaly. It wasn't a physical threat, but a creeping, inexplicable emptiness that began to manifest in the farthest reaches of uncharted space. Entire star systems observed by Concordium deep space probes would simply flicker out of existence, not collapsing or exploding, but simply not being there anymore. No energy signature, no gravitational trace, no discernible cause. It was as if reality itself was being subtly unstitched. Dr. Thorne's most advanced scanners could detect it but not explain it. "It's not the unseen," Dr. Thorne stated, his voice hushed with a mixture of terror and exhilaration during an emergency session of the Concordium High Council. His eyes, though ancient, still held the spark of insatiable curiosity. "The unseen are chaos from outside. This is an internal unraveling, a fundamental flaw in the fabric of existence itself. It's like the universe is bleeding out silently." The architect Echoes, when carefully probed, seemed to resonate with a faint warning frequency when the deep void anomaly expanded. They suggested a cosmic rot, a slow, insidious decay caused by an ancient forgotten imbalance, one that the architects themselves had tried to solve and seemingly failed. General Jin, now a centenarian, whose wisdom and combat prowess were legendary, organized the Pioneers of the Void, an elite multi-species exploration fleet dedicated to investigating the deep void anomaly. These were the bravest, most resilient, and most scientifically curious beings in the Concordium, equipped with Thorne's latest quantum phase navigators, ships capable of briefly crossing into higher dimensions to bypass localized spatial distortions. Admiral Anya Sharma, a brilliant human tactician and a direct descendant of the legendary Admiral Astreus, commanded the Starweaver, the flagship of the Pioneers. Her mission was to understand, not to fight. "We are venturing into the heart of the unknown," she told her diverse crew, a mix of human quantum pilots, Xylosian cartographers, Zelvani navigators, and Zorathi psychics. "We may find answers or we may find oblivion, but we will face it with open minds and unyielding resolve." The journey into the deep void anomaly was a harrowing ordeal. The farther they went, the more reality itself seemed to fluctuate. Stars appeared and disappeared. Temporal eddies caused moments to stretch into hours, and the very concept of direction became meaningless. The unseen, attracted by the weakening fabric of reality, became more aggressive, their chaotic incursions more frequent, straining the Starweaver's reality anchors to their limits. During one particularly harrowing incursion, the Starweaver found itself trapped in a temporal loop, a small pocket of space where time endlessly repeated itself. The crew relived the same moments, the same unseen attack over and over their minds, slowly succumbing to despair. It was Auri the Marathi Elder now, a revered sage who had accompanied the expedition whose psionic power saved them. She focused her mind, piercing the temporal loop, drawing on her centuries of wisdom and the collective psychic strength of her ancestors. She found the subtle temporal knot in the anomaly, and with a surge of raw psionic energy, unraveled it, freeing the Starweaver. "The unseen feed on despair," Auri whispered, exhausted but resolute. "Their chaos amplifies when minds break. We must maintain our internal harmony, even when reality itself screams." Their perseverance eventually led them to a startling discovery at the very edge of the deep void anomaly, the cosmic wound. It was not a physical tear in space, but a colossal ancient scar in the fabric of reality, a wound of pure, unadulterated entropy, slowly expanding, consuming existence itself. It was the source of the anomaly, a consequence of an act so old, so profound, that it predated even the architects. Dr. Thorne, analyzing the data transmitted by the Starweaver, realized the terrifying truth. "This isn't a disease," he rasped, his voice filled with awe. "It's a failure. An ancient cosmic engine designed to facilitate the expansion of the universe has failed, and its failure is causing reality to unravel." The architect echoes, now fully engaged, and transmitting clearer data, confirmed Thorne's hypothesis. They had been tasked with repairing this cosmic wound millennia ago, but their efforts had been incomplete, their solutions temporary. They were not powerful enough to fully mend the tear, only to stabilize it. The Nix had been their last-ditch effort, a cosmic immune response to any civilization that threatened to accelerate the unraveling. The challenge now was not to fight an enemy, but to heal the universe itself. It required a level of cosmic engineering that dwarfed anything ever conceived. It required drawing upon the collective knowledge, energy, and will of every species in the Concordium. Admiral Anya Sharma, after the Starweaver's return, presented her proposal to the Concordium High Council. "We must become the cosmic weavers. We must repair the wound. It will require channeling unimaginable amounts of energy, precisely calibrated at a fundamental quantum level through the strongest points of the reality anchor net. It will be a multi-generational project. It will demand sacrifices, but it is the only way to ensure the long-term survival of all existence." The Concordium, facing this ultimate existential threat, embraced the challenge with a unity born of shared purpose. Every species contributed their unique strengths. Humanity provided the strategic vision, the relentless innovation of Dr. Thorne, and the unwavering resolve of their Star Watch and engineering corps. They also championed the Consciousness Synchronization Project, a controversial but ultimately successful effort to train psychic and non-psychic beings to collectively focus their mental energies, creating a unified galactic consciousness to power the healing process. Zarathi contributed their ancient wisdom, their understanding of cosmic ley lines, and their deep meditative practices, which were vital in guiding the flow of quantum energy and maintaining mental stability during the synchronization project. Zarn Collective. Their immense computational power was dedicated to modeling the cosmic wound, calculating the precise energy calibrations required, and optimizing the distribution network of the reality anchor net. Their drones formed colossal, self-replicating energy conduits in deep space. Xylosians. Their mastery of energy manipulation and their ability to interface directly with complex systems made them indispensable in building and maintaining the massive quantum energy transmitters. Zelvani and Pyron. Their martial prowess and resilience were repurposed for defending the critical energy hubs and ensuring the security of the cosmic weavers during the multi-century project. Their disciplined formations were used to construct vast orbital energy regulators around stars. The cosmic weaving began. It was a slow, agonizing process. Billions of beings from every species participated in the Consciousness Synchronization Project, their minds linked in a vast empathetic network, focusing their collective will to mend the cosmic wound. Dr. Thorne's quantum phase navigators constantly shuttled crucial components and personnel to the edge of the anomaly, battling the unseen who were drawn to the surges of cosmic energy. Generations passed. Empires rose and fell on other fringes of the universe, unaware of the silent, monumental struggle being waged in the deep void. The Concordium became an eternal civilization, its purpose intertwined with the very survival of reality. Children were born, grew old, and passed away, knowing only a life dedicated to the cosmic weaving. Admiral Anya Sharma, now a revered matriarch, oversaw the project with unwavering focus. She saw her ancestors, their struggles, their moments of triumph in every phase of the weaving. She saw the primitive species once dismissed now becoming the literal architects of the cosmos. After 500 years of continuous effort, a faint, almost imperceptible shift occurred. The cosmic wound, though still vast, had begun to contract. The anomalous flickerings in the deep void lessened. The unseen, though still present, seemed to recoil, their chaotic influence slightly diminished. The cosmic tapestry, stretched thin for eons, was slowly, painstakingly beginning to mend. It was not a grand, climactic victory. It was a subtle, almost silent triumph of persistence, unity, and an unwavering commitment to life itself. The future held new challenges, new discoveries, and perhaps eventually a true understanding of the architects and their grand design. But for now, the galaxy knew peace. A peace born not from absence of conflict, but from the eternal vigil of those who chose to become the weavers of reality, the guardians of existence. Humanity, the once forgotten ember, had ignited a light that now illuminated the very edge of the universe, a beacon of hope and a testament to the boundless potential of a species that refused to be unmade. The cosmic weaving continued, a silent symphony of existence echoing through the vast, endless expanse of time and space forever.